Good morning. I thought it would be fun to do something a little different today and try to live like it's the year 1955. So I'm going to take you along for a day in the life of a 1950s housewife. Starting with first thing, brushing my teeth. I'm actually using my favorite brand of toothpaste, which is Marvis. And I'm also applying cold cream all over my face. This is the Pond's Cold Cream brand. It's a true classic. It actually got popular in World War II because it was the world's first moisturizer not to require refrigeration. So that's pretty cool. And the next step in the housewife routine is to do 15 minutes of calisthenics. These are all various exercises that I found in books from the era, and they mostly seem to focus on the core and the legs. I thought it was a little unusual to leave the cold cream on my face during all this swanning about, but the 1955 book called The Handbook of Beauty says wearing the cold cream as you exercise is a good double-duty beauty trick. Quote, the combined effect of the cream and the stirring up of your circulation results in an extra fine facial. So I thought that was kind of cute and not a bad idea. So now, of course, it's time to put my face on. And I started with simple skincare, removing the cold cream, applying witch hazel, and moisturizer. And I thought this was kind of funny because another thing from the era is the bride's reference manual. And that says, quote, if you're a bride with a maidless kitchen, learn to get up gracefully in the morning. The application of lipstick gives you confidence for grappling with coffee pot and orange squeezer. Don't weaken and start the coffee first, or you will soon cease to bother going back to pretty up. There lies the downward path from beautiful bride to disheveled wife. Ouch, I thought that was a bit harsh. But obviously I need to put a full face on today, so I'll be wrangling my curlers and doing my makeup and getting everything ready. And I also wanted to mention that for my hair and makeup for this day, I followed some tutorials by my sweet friend Maria. She has a lovely channel here called 50s Housewife Me. So I will be sure to link her 50s hair and makeup tutorials below in case you want to know what I'm doing here to achieve my look for the day. And I also want to go ahead and take this time to put out a few disclaimers. I really want to ask that we can all hopefully take this video in the good fun that it was intended. Obviously, I love the 1950s and the aesthetic and design and fashion, but absolutely do not condone the appalling lack of civil rights at the time or the tragic racism that we're still fighting today. I just want to make that absolutely clear that I'm not downplaying the wonderful advancements of modern life or how far women have come or how far we still as a society have to go in all of these things. And I might as well add that I'm not a history expert, so this might not be factually perfect, but I did do a lot of research for this video in vintage beauty manuals and housekeeping books and some modern blogs. So all that to say, the 50s were not perfect, and I'm not either. I'm obviously a modern woman with tattoos and body dimensions that don't match Marilyn's. So I'm just here to share with you and have some fun with this topic, and I hope you will enjoy. And with all that said, it is time to get cooking. So breakfast this morning is inspired by a book by John Robert Powers, and he represented models and actresses including Lucille Ball and Ava Gardner. So I like to think this is a breakfast that they may have eaten, and it's pretty simple. It's just half a grapefruit, one soft-boiled egg, and one piece of toast lightly buttered. But naturally, this being the 50s, we had to go completely extra and carve the grapefruit into the shape of a basket. This was an idea from the Modern Household Encyclopedia of 1946, and I thought it looked so cute. A big part of a 1950s housewife's life would be sending her husband off to work in the morning and greeting him at night. But we are actually both working from home still, which I've been so grateful for. So instead of kissing Nate goodbye at the door, I am kissing him goodbye at the home office for the purposes of this video. And by the way, in an effort to make this video as authentic as possible, I won't be using any technology today that wasn't around in the 50s. And since we don't have a landline or a fabulous pink antique phone, I'm using this handset attachment to plug into my iPhone and use it as a fake landline. So I'm going to leave it here face down all day, and I will have to answer it if it rings without knowing who's calling. Yikes. But I'm now about to get going with the main work for today, which is, of course, housekeeping. A vintage housewife would do her chores and cleaning rounds first thing in the morning in case company popped by later. I'm actually not expecting anybody, but we're still going to be doing it all in true 1950s spirit. So I will be cleaning my kitchen, including washing dishes by hand, making the bed and tidying up, wiping down the bathrooms, and cleaning all the floors. And I always listen to music when I'm doing work around the house, and I didn't want today to have to be an exception to that, so instead I just listened on vinyl. But it's finally time for a well-earned break, and this lunch also comes from John Robert Powers. He recommends tomato soup, fresh berries, a salad of lettuce, tomato, and cottage cheese, and a glass of milk. I did make a sandwich for my husband, but tried to make it all well presented and set the table and made it a special meal. But I was feeling a little bit tired after lunch, so I decided to take some advice from my 1950 Betty Crocker picture cookbook. And this says, quote, "If you feel tired, lie down on the floor and put your hands above your head, close your eyes, and relax for 3 to 5 minutes." So I gave this a shot. Of course, this little guy had to join me. But surprisingly, 3 minutes did not cut it. So I mustered the energy to get out for a bit, and I tried a different vintage low-energy cure. This one comes from the 1944 book, How to Be Attractive by Joan Bennett. And she writes that when you're too tired to move, you should go for a walk outdoors. She said this always worked for her, quote, "By breathing in fresh air and exhaling the thoroughly used up breath, I was supplying my body with one of its greatest natural fatigue and toxin fighters, oxygen. That tired feeling is toxic rather than muscular." So I gave that technique a try, and I have to admit, it worked. I felt better. And I also think most 50s housewives would take their kids to the park to play on an afternoon like this, and these fur babies were more than happy to oblige me. I'm scared. This challenge made me realize I actually get very few phone calls and a ton of texts, but I had my notifications turned off, so I only heard one peep out of my phone all day, and that was when my best friend in Chicago called this afternoon. So I took the opportunity to sit and catch up, and it was perfect because a housewife would have definitely spent time on the phone or catching up in person with neighbors and friends. So socializing always has its place in the housewife life. And it also gave me a chance to partake in my second glass of milk for the day. John Robert Powers calls milk, quote, "nature's purest beauty food." And almost every beauty book I've read from the era recommends at least a pint a day. But now it's time to get back in the kitchen and start preparing dinner. For tonight, we are having tuna broccoli casserole and pineapple jello salad. You know this video would not be complete if we didn't eat some weird molded jello item. But these recipes are from a cute little 1950s cookbook called Dinner for Two. And both of these dishes are easy to prep in advance, and I thought they'd be perfect for the housewife on the go. And I also took this afternoon to make my first ever apple pie completely from scratch. It seemed like such a wholesome thing to do. And I followed the original 1950 recipe in this Betty Crocker picture cookbook. All of my homemaking advice from this era suggests taking some time to freshen up or even take a short nap before hubby comes home. So the idea is, of course, to be perky and lovely for greeting him, but also to work in a little self-care. So I'm taking a moment to touch up my lipstick here. This color, by the way, is the iconic Revlon shade Fire and Ice. It's from 1952, still sold today. Perfect red, if you ask me. And I'm also touching up my powder using this classic Coty Airspun powder. This came on the market in the 1920s, and it's also a really great, really well-priced powder, perfect for freshening up. And naturally, I will be greeting Nate with a cocktail a la Mad Men. So tonight I'm making us our favorite style of martini, which is the Vesper, made famous by the 1953 James Bond novel Casino Royale. For this drink, I'm using equal parts gin, vodka, and vermouth, plus extra olives. Honey, he's home. We had a lovely romantic reunion after our long days, quote, apart. And then we took some time to catch up on our dates and just enjoy a cocktail together before dinner, which was nice, not to just race straight into the meal and have a little tradition of catching up. And then in honor of the era, I made the dinner table a little extra special, even though it was just a weeknight, but we had a tablecloth and candlelight and Jell-O salad, which we were both pretty hesitant about. The cookbook said to serve it with mayonnaise. It also said you could serve it as dessert with whipped cream instead, which would be way better because, to be honest, this was pretty gross. With the mayonnaise, it was hard to get down, but the tuna casserole was actually pretty good. It just had tuna, broccoli, cream of mushroom soup, milk, and crushed potato chips. So not the healthiest by modern standards, but it was pretty delicious. And for dessert, of course, we enjoyed the apple pie, which turned out perfect, if I do say so myself. We also ate it with sharp cheddar cheese, which is a combination I had never tried before, but the Betty Crocker cookbook said, quote, apple pie without cheese is like a kiss without a squeeze. So we had to do it. And it was an interesting combination. I think we both preferred the plain hot apple pie, but I'm glad I tried it in true, authentic 50s fashion. After dinner, it was time to relax with some vintage home beauty treatments. And first things first, taking out my hair for the day. All of the beauty books recommend the classic 100 strokes with a boar bristle brush, and that is no small feat, but my hair did feel really shiny and healthy afterward. I kind of lost count, so I don't know for sure if this was 100 strokes, but I tried. And I did recurl the front section for tomorrow and tied it all up in a scarf to keep it out of the way. So then it was time to relax with a bath. And while I filled the bathtub, I applied body oil all over and let that soak into my skin, which is something I read about in a lot of my vintage books. And I also washed my face with cold cream again, and then created a face mask, quote unquote, using tissues soaked in chilled witch hazel. This was recommended in the 1955 book Lady Be Lovely, which says to, quote, iron your face with an ice cube to make your skin cool and firm. So as you can see, this wound up looking a bit more terrifying than relaxing. And it certainly gave me a new appreciation for modern beauty treatments and face masks, but it actually did feel very nice on my skin. It just looked like the scariest mummy ever. And then when I removed that, I was all ready to jump in the bath and just luxuriate and soak for a little bit. Lastly, I sat down at my vanity for some before bed skincare, and I think this is such a lovely idea from the era. I absolutely love just actually sitting down to do my skincare instead of feeling rushed and like hunching over the sink. And I think they did it because bathrooms weren't as large back then as they are now, but it really is nice to just feel relaxed and to take your time at an actual vanity. So for my skincare, I simply added a facial moisturizer. This is Oil of Olay, which was introduced in 1952. And I have to admit, it makes my skin feel so soft. And then I'm also going to take a moment to do another beauty hack from the 50s, which is pretty strange, but applying Vaseline to eyelashes, eyebrows, and lips before bed. So afterward, we all relaxed together as a family in the living room, 1950s style. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure that a 1950s wife would let her husband see her this way with no makeup and all the skincare on. But Nate was loving it, so I felt no need to hide. And I took the opportunity to catch up on some knitting, which is one of my favorite pastimes for relaxing, no matter what year it is. And we also watched an episode of my favorite show of all time, I Love Lucy. This is probably my top episode. It's from season 5, episode 26, when they fly home from Europe and Lucy tries to smuggle 25 pounds of cheese on the flight, disguised as a baby, which she later has to eat to hide it from customs.
Leave what you can, we'll figure out what to do with the rest later.
Finally, it was time to call it a day well spent and a happy housewife off to bed. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me on this journey into the past, and I'm sending you love from the year 1955. So please let me know if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe and all that futuristic stuff like that, and I will see you very soon. Good night.